The Your Safe Space podcast is recorded on Wurundjeri land. This podcast acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of the land. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. This episode of Your Safe Space is brought to you by Elite 11. Elite 11 is one of my favourite Australian sporting and activewear brands, and you can shop Elite 11 now with the code Adele10 at elite11sporting.com, in-store or by downloading their app. Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast. I'm your host, Adele Marie, and this podcast is here for you. It is a safe space for us to catch up each week to discuss anything and everything. And on today's show, we are doing something different. We're doing a little bit of a winter survival guide, a hot girl winter, if you will. I'm so excited to do this episode, and I know some of you are probably thinking, Adele, what the fuck? This is so niche. But just trust me, when I get to the end, you'll be like, yes, I see the vision, okay? But before we get into it, how are you going? How is everyone's week? I hope you've had a good week. I hope you've had a nice weekend. Technically, if you're listening to this on Sunday, the weekend is still going, so do something nice for yourself if you haven't already. And as always, before we get into the show, we do a quick little check-in. Highlight gratitudes, struggles, and I'm going to give you mine. I love hearing yours. If you're not already, come and join the Facebook group where you can leave yours. Every Monday, I put up a post. I love reading your replies. It helps me feel connected to you, and I would love for you to come and fill that out tomorrow. But I'm going to give you mine, and I'm actually going to give you guys some breaking news on the podcast first today when I get to my highlight. But my struggle, we're going to start with that because I always think get the bad out of the way first. But my struggle has just been really balancing everything at once. I've had a little bit on my plate for the last few weeks, and it's been very chaotic to say the least. I have not been prioritizing myself, and sometimes I feel like a bit of a fraud because I'm like, I come on here and I'm like, prioritize yourself, and then I'm like, well, lead by example. So I am making more effort to do that, and I'm really proud of myself because this weekend I had a very quiet weekend, the one that just passed. And I'm hoping that I've had a quiet weekend this upcoming one too. I just really needed that, if I'm totally honest. I had events or parties or personal things happening every single other weekend in the lead up to last week. And I really just needed some downtime to do nothing. And it was great. It was so quiet. My mum and dad also went away for the long weekend, and so had the house to myself as well. And it was just like, oh, feeling refreshed. But I do have to admit, today is Tuesday and I'm feeling like it's Monday. So we've made a couple mistakes in the podcast that I've recorded today. Wow, get with it. And then my highlight, guys, breaking news. The first time I'm telling you this, but my renovation is finished. I know you're probably thinking, what the hell? And I did keep it offline for a little while because I just wanted to prioritize some safety things and some safety concerns that I had. I have recorded all the content, so don't worry, it will be dropping on my YouTube channel over the coming weeks. I'll also have my builder on the podcast next week, and I think that episode might drop next week or the week after, but it has come up so beautiful. I can't wait for you guys to see it. I can't wait to tell you all the mistakes and things not to do and share with you the process. And yeah, the builder episode will just be to wrap that property series that I've done. I don't necessarily just want it to be about my renovation, but I think it would be a great opportunity if you guys have questions. Maybe you're thinking about renovating your own property. Maybe you're not wanting to do like a full renovation and you're just wanting to do some superficial stuff to your property. I think it would be a great episode for you to listen to if you are in that position. And obviously my gratitude is that as well. And it has just been a huge relief knowing that it's now finished and knowing that I can almost just like breathe and have one thing off my plate or one thing off my shoulders. And there was a lot happening at once. And then I also felt, I don't know how I felt, but I felt odd not like sharing things in real time too. Like I was just carrying this. And so I'm really excited that we're all on the same page now and everyone knows and the content will be out there. And obviously I'm super grateful to a few people in that because obviously, firstly, my builder, and we'll talk more on that episode, but they obviously helped deliver the project. So super grateful to them. And then my parents as well, who physically helped me do the demolition at the start. We demoed the kitchen and it was a very physical day. My parents aren't spring chickens and they're going to kill me for saying that, but they are in their 50s and getting older, and I'm just mindful. And then more recently, just last week, we spent 2 days in the garden and it was a lot. Like we took out everything that was in the garden on the Sunday, and then on the Wednesday, My mum and I moved like 2 cubic meters of rocks, and I'm talking like shovel, wheelbarrow. It was a lot. It was very physical work, and mum and I were still so sore literally up until like yesterday or the day before. And so I'm super grateful to them, and obviously very grateful as well that they allowed me to live at home for the past however many months or the past year, because yeah, it's taken a while to get it done. And obviously I was grateful to live there and be able to fund the renovation. And obviously, elephant in the room as well, you guys, because I do what I do for a job, and that's how I make money, and that's how I was also able to fund part of that as well. I did, and I have spoken about this in older property videos or stuff on my YouTube, but there was a portion of it that was already paid for by the loan that I took out and like savings that I had from my old job. But yeah, I'm just super grateful that that's where we're at, and definitely feeling lots of gratitude for that moment in my life, in that chapter of my life. So yeah, bit of a Sunday bombshell for you guys. And the episodes will be dropping, I believe, this week on my YouTube. So if you do want more renovation content, go over there as well. But let's get into the show, because today we are going to be chatting all things getting through winter. And as I said, I did call it hot girl winter, but I'm going to just call it hot person winter, because I know that we have some men and some non-binary people listening to Your Safe Space. And so what I'm going to do today is unpack the winter blues. We're going to chat a little bit about seasonal affective disorder as well. And then I'm going to give you my top tips for navigating this time of year. Now, I was very keen to do this episode because I suffer from winter blues. Okay. And it's a pattern that I notice in myself every single winter it comes around. I can physically feel it. I can see it on myself. And I also see in the summertime how different I am. And I see how much I thrive. And I see how energized I feel. And I truly believe that's why I actually stayed in Sydney for so long. Whenever anyone asks me about that chapter of my life in Sydney, I say to them, like, the best thing about it for me was the weather, because it definitely wasn't as cold as what it is here. It was warmer as a whole, and it was definitely sunnier. And I'm going to admit it that the sunshine definitely impacts my mood in a good way, just like the cloudiness and darkness impacts my mood, unfortunately, in a bad way. And I really just want this episode to be here whenever we need it. It's one that I think I'll have to come back and listen to, and you are more than welcome to come back and listen to it, especially if it's one of those super cold mornings and you're struggling to get out of bed, or struggling with your routine, or feeling a little bit lost throughout this time of year. Now, I'm also not plucking this topic out of thin air, okay? Because a lot of you last week, when I was talking about the mid-year reset and I put up a question box, we're actually struggling with this the most, and it was also the second highest voted topic in the Facebook group as well. And so I did not poll you this week. I just took initiative. I was like, I'm doing this episode. I really want to do it. And so here we are. And the other side to it is that it is actually a scientifically proven thing, okay? During these winter months, the sun does rise later, the sun also sets earlier, and cloudiness throughout the day also physically limits the amount of sunshine that we get. Now, I also think it depends on a couple of things as well. Some of us may go to work or commute to work in the morning. When we leave the house, it might be dark, and then we get home and it's also dark outside. Or you may work from home like me, and you may not get outdoors before work. You may not get outdoors before lunchtime. Maybe you just go to the gym. That's still not getting outdoors. So you may not even really be leaving the house or getting any daylight during this time of the year as well. Now, like most things that we talk about on this podcast, there is a scale, okay? And so like most things, you can exist on the scale. Things can move on the scale. And so if you are feeling like you resonate with what I'm saying, I will hopefully give you some practical tips at the end of this to help you through that. But on the scale, on one side, we do have the winter blues that I'm talking about. And then on the other side, we have seasonal affective disorder, which is also known as SAD, which is also sad, which I think is a little bit ironic. And I'm going to give you some of the signs for both. We're going to probably focus more on winter blues in this episode. And I also just need to say, as always, I'm not a professional mental health expert. This podcast is not a substitute for that. So if you do need that, please check the show notes as well. But we'll start with winter blues. Okay, so winter blues are, I'm going to say, more general. They're not diagnosable. So you're not diagnosed by anyone. You're self-diagnosed. And it really doesn't affect your day-to-day function. You can still get stuff done. You can still go to work. You can still live your life, and you can manage it with tools that I'm going to talk about in a second. But you tend to maybe feel a little bit low or a little bit sad, and you notice that this happens to you during the winter months. It is that almost fatigue and that just low vibe. And I'm sure many of us can relate during the colder months, especially depending on where you live as well. I know that we have quite a few Melbourne or Victorian Your Safe Space listeners, and I feel you guys. I'm right here with you. It's also not super cold yet either. We've just gone into winter, but I feel like it will probably get worse. But it is that struggling maybe to get out of bed. It's that snoozing of the alarm. Maybe we're feeling a little bit unmotivated to do the things that we would usually want to do. Maybe you just don't want to go outside, and totally normal because it's fucking freezing and I don't really want to go outside either. Or maybe you're feeling bored with your life or bored with things that you're doing. You might even just be less interested in like hanging out with your friends or doing activities that you would usually enjoy. And maybe you have struggle concentrating, whether that's at work or in your personal life. It can definitely play a role in those areas as well. Oh, the other one is you could have trouble sleeping, and you might also want to spend more time in bed than you usually do, which can relate to because I've definitely been waking up, snoozing my alarm, or just lying there trying to get warm before I get out of bed. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have seasonal affective disorder. Now, this is more serious, and it is a condition classified by the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, and that is because it is a severe type of depression. Okay, so this would typically be diagnosed by a GP or a psychologist and is more severe to the point where you cannot function day to day, and it impacts your ability to do things like work, to interact, to get things done. And it doesn't just occur in winter, so it also would occur in other seasons like summer, for example. You also would require therapy or medication to manage and monitor this as well. And obviously, if you are experiencing any of those things, I do recommend chatting to your GP so that they can help you plan and manage and navigate those next steps and give you an action plan. Because if you are obviously on that end of the spectrum, don't worry, you can still get help. You don't have to fight any of those feelings by yourself or alone. And then if you're on the other end of the spectrum, I'm hopefully going to give you some practical tips to navigate this after the break. But we do have a word from today's sponsor. Now, you guys know I love my activewear, and one of my favorite activewear brands and loyal supporters of the show, Elite 11, is sponsoring another episode of Your Safe Space. Elite 11's pieces are a staple in my wardrobe, and this goes for whether I'm at the gym, just running errands, on a hot girl walk. Elite 11 has something for every situation that I'm in and something for everyone. They offer both women's and men's ranges and go up to 3XL in sizing, and they have a selection of different pieces that cater to everyone. You can find loungewear, lifestyle, and performance pieces to find comfort and style in any activity. Right now, my top picks are their new puffer vests. Some of you may have seen me wearing them. I have not taken them off. I've also been loving the long sleeve crops as well. I have it in blue or blizzard blue and black, and I'm actually going to get another color as well because I think it's super cute. And so you can shop Elite 11 now at elite11sporting.com, in store, or by downloading their app, and you can use the code Adele10 to save you some money too. The other thing I want to let you guys know, and just quickly, I'm going off the script, but one of you, Nicole, a listener of Your Safe Space, messaged me the other day on Instagram, and she's like, I went into the E store at Melbourne Central and I used your code at the counter. I had no idea that Elite 11 let you do that. So if you guys happen to go into a store, and I know they've got some stores across Australia at the moment, you can actually still use the code. Thank you if you've ever used the code, and thank you so much to Elite 11 for making this episode of Your Safe Space possible. All right, so now I'm going to give you guys the how. This is what I recommend to move us from the winter blues into that thriving, feeling better, feeling good space. That's where we want to be, okay? And hopefully these can be just tools in your toolkit to help you get from A to B. And then you can hopefully rely on these tools to help you navigate these harsher months. So my first tip is to seek out sunlight and to look at your vitamin D. Now, I have spoken a little bit about vitamin D on this podcast, but lack of sunlight or low vitamin D can actually give you some very serious side effects that are not very nice to experience, including low mood, making you feel fatigued, and making you feel sad. And recently, when I had the last blood test, you guys would know that my vitamin D was incredibly low. The doctor did put me on vitamin D supplements, but I felt as bad as I felt when I was diagnosed with depression. And I wasn't feeling as depressed, and I could see with my self-awareness, but I felt as bad. And I was like, what the fuck is happening to me? Why do I feel this terrible? And it was literally because of my vitamin D. Now, I have been taking supplements since that blood test, and I am feeling a lot better. But it is so important that we get outside, even if it's cloudy. And I know you might think, oh, the sun's not out, it doesn't matter, but it does. And the same goes for when you wake up in the morning, opening your curtains and opening your blinds and just letting light into your house can also shift the mood and help you have that access to the sunlight. And I would recommend, if you are feeling low, if you are feeling like any of the things I've described, go to your doctor, get a blood test, and see if you do need to take vitamin D supplements as well. And it's funny because I can look back, and when I was diagnosed with depression, I also had low vitamin D that time as well. And it's always in winter. And so what I'm going to do now every single winter, because I don't think I have this issue in summer, but every single winter I'm just going to take the vitamin D supplements. And I'm not a doctor, obviously, so guys, talk to your doctor if this is you, but I just know that I don't want to have to worry about feeling like that. I've seen the pattern there for myself, and if I can mitigate that, then I absolutely will. My next tip is to look at your sleep and your nighttime routine. And I'm calling myself out here, but it is ensuring that you are keeping your sleep tidy and that you have a really good sleep schedule. And so what a good sleep schedule looks like is going to bed at the same time. And I'm calling myself out because my sleep has been all over the place the last couple of weeks. I've had very late nights, very random wake ups, but it is also waking up at the same time and getting your body into a rhythm, especially during this time of the year. Maybe it even looks like getting off your phone 30 minutes before bedtime. If that's too much, maybe it's just getting off your phone 10 minutes before bedtime. Again, working into a routine that works for you. Maybe you're doing a 5-minute journal dump or a brain dump of what happened throughout the day to get your mind clear before you rest. Maybe you're even making yourself a cup of tea or a hot chocolate. Some of you might be seeing that I'm in my hot chocolate era at the moment. And it honestly just helps me on those winter nights have a better nighttime routine and get me ready for bed, which I love. I do also, so I've been loving the hot chocolate, but typically I would love like a peppermint tea or even like a chamomile tea because that can relax you and help you get ready for bed too. And the reason that this is my second tip is because sleep is so important. And I would love to get like a sleep specialist on this podcast one day. I'm going to do it because sleep impacts your mood so much. And I feel like it's something that I personally neglect a little bit. And I feel like it's something that we can tend to neglect. But when we look after this part of our life, it's one of those basics that I always talk about, like nail the basics. That can help lift your mood, lift your vibe, decrease stress, lift how you get through the day and lift you up energetically. Number 3 is self-care. And I'm pretty big on the self-care, but especially during winter, I'm going extra hard. And this is really making sure that you are doing activities during these months that bring you joy and that bring you relaxation. And it can be anything. Okay, I'm going to give you some tips or some ideas, but maybe it is reading a book. Maybe you're listening to a podcast. Maybe it's your safe space. Maybe you're taking a bath. Maybe you're practicing mindfulness or even meditation. Again, potentially journaling. Any kind of hobbies that make you feel fulfilled. And for me, staying active is a form of self-care. So I have put staying active in this same tip. And that is because regular exercise has been shown to boost your mood and reduce symptoms of depression and stress and any other feelings like that. Now, I know it can be so hard, especially when it's cold, especially when you don't want to go outside. And some little things that I do for myself, whether it is getting to the gym or going on a walk, is I make sure that I have a really good puffer. I make sure that I've got a beanie. There was one winter that I was rocking the gloves, like the fingerless gloves, so I could still scroll on my phone. And there were some occasions where I would even wear thermals. I haven't had to pull them out this year yet, but I physically would get myself ready for it so I could actually know I can get out of the bed, I can get to this point, or I can go outside, I can go for a walk. And I'll tell you, having a beanie, game changer. I know it can mess the hair a little bit, guys, but nothing a bit of dry shampoo can't fix. Okay. Now, engaging in activities that you enjoy, I'm going to say is still number 1. So I'm not sitting here telling you that you have to go for a walk, because I go for walks. I'm not sitting here telling you that you have to go do my gym program. I'm not sitting here telling you you have to journal for 40 hours of the day or 40 hours a week. Find what works for you. Find what feels good for you. If you are not doing any of these things right now, that's okay. I'm not shaming you for not doing them, but what I would recommend is starting small. So maybe you can just pick one thing that I've spoken about and then aim for just doing that for 5 minutes a day for the next week and see how you go with that. Again, start small, 5 minutes at a time. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. You don't have to do all of the things I'm telling you at once, but I'm just trying to give you some context and some tips so you can take what you need from this episode. My next tip is to lean on your friends or your family. And that is because I feel like during these colder months, the feelings of loneliness, even the feelings of isolation can arise, especially because we are less likely to do things. I don't know about you, but I can definitely tell you if someone or any of my friends are like, oh, let's go out on this night, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to be freezing. The inclination to want to go out anyway is probably low. And so what I suggest as an antidote to that is to lean into it and to challenge that. I know it can be hard. Again, I know it can be hard because it's cold, but spend time with your people, whether that is friends, whether that is family, whether that is co-workers. It can be very simple things from maybe going on a walk, maybe having a coffee. Even if you don't want to do that, having a phone call can help as well. I spoke to one of my friends on the phone a couple of weeks ago. She lives up in the Gold Coast and she's lucky because she does have a lot better weather than what I do here. But we just spoke on the phone for like 1 hour on like a random Monday morning and it was so nice. And I said to her, we should do like a walk together and just like call each other while we're on it just to help us like stay accountable. And you could definitely do that with anyone in your friendship group. We could even start like an accountability thread in the Facebook group if you guys wanted, but it is so important to remain connected. And I think we all saw the impacts of what, a pandemic and what isolation in that sense did to community. And so making sure you stay connected to your people, making sure that you lean into that will help you just navigate this time as well. And then my last tip is to seek professional help. And that's because if any of the changes that I've given you or tips and tricks that I've given you to your lifestyle don't help or don't make you feel better or aren't helping and you're still struggling, firstly, that is okay. But chatting to a GP who can then either refer you to somebody else can help and can help you navigate it, because with winter blues, they can take a toll on your health, both mentally and physically. And while we definitely can't change the seasons or control the weather, we can try to get help. And sometimes that does look like getting a third party to help us, because sometimes things are really hard and we can't do that by ourselves. But guys, I would love to know your tips and tricks for getting through these months as well. I know it can be super hard, and the other thing that I just try to do is take it one day at a time and know that it will eventually be over and we will make it through to spring. And I would love to hear what you guys do, any little hacks or tricks that you help to navigate this time of the year. But we are going to wrap the show here. And so if you're not already, please follow us on Instagram, Your Safe Space Pod. Follow me at Adele Marie. Join our beautiful Facebook group. I will put up a thread for this post and I'd love to see your comments about what you do during this time of year. And then please leave us a review on Apple, a rating on Spotify, and give us a shout out on your Instagram story. Guys, thank you so much for joining me again. I will see you next week. Take care of yourselves and stay warm. Thank you so much again to Elite 11 for making this episode of Your Safe Space possible. Shop Elite 11 now with the code Adele10 at elite11sporting.com. Bye.